So if we want to tackle terrorism, we must act not only to destroy Daesh where they are in Syria. In Iraq, but we must also dismantle and destroy these networks. How can we proceed? Well, first of all, militarily, by intensifying our strikes, by taking back these territories. Thanks to the local forces on the ground, which we can support by finding a political solution in Syria. By making sure that the territorial integrity of Iraq is restored. This is what we can do. Then, when it comes to protection measures to protect our territory and our people. This is what I announced in France, and this is what we have to do too. Eradicate these networks and all of these accomplices and those who are present. Some of them just arrived, others have been there for a long time. And they are not necessarily identified as a threat. It is, therefore, necessary that we strengthen yet further our cooperation in terms of intelligence. The Paris attacks generated a lot of emotion. But that's not enough compassion, solidarity. And I take note of it, but we must act. And for a number of days now, I've been trying to convincing all the countries that can act to do so. I met with David Cameron yesterday. He announced that he would take a number of measures to his parliament. That is important. Today I'm here with Barack so that we can act with greater intensity and coherence, as well. Tomorrow I will be hosting German Chancellor Angela Merkel so that European countries including Germany, can face up to their responsibilities. Including in terms of military intelligence and police cooperation, and maybe more. I will also travel to Moscow, so that Russia can take action against Daesh, and only against Daesh. And then I will receive Matteo Renzi, the head of the Italian government. I will also have an opportunity to talk to all of the European leaders. Given that a European Council, together with Turkey, will be held on Sunday. So it is all of that must get together and enable us to implement coordination. Cooperation in our actions so that we can act on the source, dates, and networks that it can use. It is that strength that will enable us to succeed. Question, as interpreted. A question from BFM TV. Both of you today have talked about coordination, cooperation against Daesh. Does it mean that this single coalition which you mentioned last week, President Hollande is gone? That it is inconceivable to have the Russians and the Americans to work together under this single command? And then Bashar al-Assad, you said you could not put a date on his departure. Does it mean that his departure is not a preamble or prerequisite for the future of Syria? President Hollande, as interpreted. Regarding the coalition of the international community, I believe that the resolution approved by all at the Security Council enabled us to say that now the entire world is committed to fighting against Daesh. Then and this is what I will check when I travel to Moscow. We need one single goal. That is to tackle terrorism and fight against Daesh militarily. And I believe that we can have some further cooperation and coordination militarily to do more. At the same time, we have to be clear when it comes to the political solution. The one that will enable us to find an outcome for Syria. And in this respect, like we've said, and we can repeat it, Bashar al-Assad cannot be the future of Syria. In Vienna, we are already working with all of the countries even though they do not necessarily. They do not have the same stance Turkey, Iran, Gulf countries. The United States, France, and of course all of those who are meant to find a solution. But we must work on that transition, a transition where Bashar al-Assad plays no role. Because he's been the problem, so he cannot be the solution. President Obama, we've got a coalition of 65 countries who have been active in pushing back against ISIL for quite some time. France has been a central part of that coalition, as have European countries, Arab countries. Countries as far-flung as Australia and countries in Southeast Asia are part of that coalition. Russia right now is a coalition of two, Iran and Russia, supporting Assad. Given Russia's military capabilities and given the influence they have on the Assad regime. Them cooperating would be enormously helpful in bringing about a resolution of the civil war in Syria. And allow us all to refocus our attention on ISIL. But I think it's important to remember that you've got a global coalition organized. Russia is the outlier. We hope that they refocus their attention on what is the most substantial threat. And that they serve as a constructive partner. And if and when they do, it will make it easier for us to go after ISIL and Daesh. Although I think it's also important to recognize that the kinds of airstrikes that they're carrying out just like the kinds of airstrikes that we're carrying out in and of themselves are not sufficient. And the work that we do to bolster local fighting forces, the cutting off of supply lines. Financing, oil, reducing the flow of foreign fighters, the intelligence work that needs to be done. All of that is something that we are doing now and that they can supplement. But that's going to be a process that involves hard, methodical work. It's not going to be something that happens just because suddenly we take a few more airstrikes. And that's the kind of hard work that I know France is prepared to do. The United States is prepared to do, and perhaps, in the future, Russia will be, as well. Thank you very much, everybody. Barack Obama. Federal Trade Commission address. Delivered January 12, 2015, Constitution Center, Washington, D. C. Thank you so much. Thank you. Everybody have a seat. Well, thank you, Edith. For your introduction. Edith and I go a long way back. In law school we served on the law review together. I will not say. Who edited who? I will say she looks exactly the same. And I do not. And it's upsetting. Edith, in your career, you've stood up for citizens and communities. I was proud to nominate you first as a commissioner, and then as chairwoman of the FTC. You are doing an outstanding job, as are your fellow commissioners. And we very much appreciate your outstanding efforts. And Edith's story, from the daughter of Mexican immigrants to the head of the FTC. We see a central part of the American story. And that's worth remembering at a time when those are issues that we're debating all the time. It's a reminder that what makes this country special is the incredible talent that we draw from all around the world, and somehow it all merges into something unique, America. To Edith, to the fellow commissioners, to all of you who work at the FTC, thanks for welcoming me. I'm told I may be the first president to come to the FTC in nearly 80 years. Since FDR in first time, apparently since FDR in 1937, which is a little surprising. I mean, you'd think like one of the presidents would just come here by accident. They ended up in the wrong building. We're already at the FTC. Anyway, I figured it was time to correct that. Plus, I know sometimes your name confuses folks. They don't always understand what your mission is. One person who does understand is David Letterman. A few months ago he thanked you for standing up to the companies that were trying to Pitch a new weight loss product, caffeine-laced undergarments. I'm actually not making. This up. You ruled that these products were not substantiated by scientific evidence. So, thank you for saving America from caffeine-laced undergarments. These companies owed consumers a refund. And that was just the latest example, because, as Edith said, you recently celebrated your 100th anniversary. And I want to thank you for 100 proud years of protecting American consumers. I also want to thank some of the members of Congress who are here today and many of our partners. From not just government but the private sector and consumer and privacy and advocacy groups. Next week, just up the street, I will deliver the State of the Union address. And it will be a chance to talk about America's resurgence. Including something we can all be proud of, which is the longest stretch of private sector job growth. In American history, 58 straight months and more than 11 million new jobs. In the speech, I'm going to focus on how we can build on that progress and help more Americans feel that resurgence in their own lives. Through higher wages and rising incomes and a growing middle class. But since I've only got 2 years left in this job, I tend to be impatient and I didn't want to wait for the State of the Union to start sharing my plans. So I've been traveling across the country rolling out some of the ideas that we'll be talking about. A little bit of a sneak preview.